So my name's Colin. I've been doing high-tech PR, community building, marketing, communications work for about 15 years. I am a partner at an agency here in the city called Knock Twice. We've got offices here in San Francisco and New York. We're going to open up a third office, and we're choosing Salt Lake City, which is kind of cool. We work with, there's two main groups that we work with, and I promise this is not about us, but it's just to kind of set the stage for my experience, I think, for you all. We do kind of your traditional PR and communications work. We also do content marketing and native advertising, which you might read about on sites like Paid Content. But a couple of things for today. At Colin Crook is my handle. I hate it when speakers get up and you don't know shit about them. You know, it's like, how do I get a hold of you? What should we be talking about today? So how do I follow this conversation? So it's at Colin Crook, 1L, Crook as in thief. Thank that. Colin at knock2x.com. It's kind of a speakeasy kind of thing. And then let's do a hashtag hack media for this. If you guys are live tweeting, if you want to get a conversation going after this with the other people in the audience or with myself, I'd like to see how long we can hang on to this thing. We don't need to trend or anything like that, but I will put a column up in my tweet deck and I'll leave it up there. And if you guys want to, if you ever have any questions or you have any questions about what we talk about today, or you just have questions period ever, just reach out and get a hold of me. I mean, my background is with Mozilla Foundation, specifically about 9 years ago now, and was part of an awesome team that helped launch the Firefox web browser. And we did spread Firefox as well.
I was one of the first users of Firefox.
What's that?
I was one of the first users.
All right, I remember you. That was you. Denmark, right? That was no, just kidding. All right. But
Paris,
so.
please, Denmark.
Yeah, God,
Paris.
my bad. Sorry, Denmark. What the hell was I thinking? That was an amazing experience with a bunch of really, really amazing people who we were all kind of doing. We would do really, really crazy shit. Like, we wouldn't put out a press release. We would announce things on our blog, dude. It was unreal. And we would have open style wiki notes. All of the developers, the entire marketing group would do that. Bart DeCreme was the head of marketing at the time. Mitchell Baker was the CEO or head of the foundation at that time. And at that time, it was all non-profit completely. There was no profit arm of Mozilla. We were a bunch of, they at that time were a bunch of AOL rejects, Netscape rejects, guys who were told that what they were doing didn't matter. And they didn't believe that. So that was a really, really, I think, cool experience. It sort of propelled me into this integration between community building and PR. And so I think this is Prezi. This is the first time I'm using it, actually, but it looks, I mean, it's pretty kick-ass, it's fun. I don't know, where's Tim? Tim, are you here? Okay. Tim, the intern at Knock Twice over there. He goes to Menlo College. He's really cool. He actually helped me with some of this, so full disclosure. It's all about, you know, digital rights and all that stuff, right? So I want to give a shout out to Tim. He uses this for all of his classes and his presentations too. So we're going to be talking about hacking the media, and I know MindJet's a big part of this, so I thought this would, you know, be good for all the mind mappers, right, in the audience. And bullet points are totally boring. So, hacking the media. Here's some things we're going to talk about today. Let me just kind of zoom in on this a little bit. There's two parts of this. The first part is my shtick and my stuff and what I've learned and I think how I do this. And I've been doing it for like 15 years now and gotten pretty good results, I guess. So we're going to talk about building media relationships because it's not rocket science really, but it's very, you have to be extremely tactful in how you do it. Your approach matters a lot. And this industry is sort of agile by default. We've always been agile because the news changes very quickly and people's opinions change very quickly. And the people who cover spaces their perceptions on life change very quickly, and that's a lot. That has a lot to do with who we are and what we do. So we're going to talk about building media relationships, kind of how you do it. I'm going to try and go into very concrete and visual examples of how I've done it in the past and what we do. And you know, it's kind of like open source. I mean, these are all things that you can have access to. These are people who are out there that you can form relationships with, and it can only benefit you know, your hireability. It can only benefit your companies. It can only benefit you as an entrepreneur if you're looking to build something. So just kind of go into this conversation with that mindset. We'll talk about actually pitching the media once you've kind of built a relationship with them. And actually, I want to pause real quick. Are there any PR people like here in the audience, or okay, cool, one couple. All right, good, yes. You guys be active. Like, I don't know everything in the effing world, so like ask questions, and there's going to be a bunch of stuff I leave out that they can probably help you with. So, yeah. So building media relationships. We're going to talk about pitching the media, how you do it. There's one question I think that we get asked a lot by early stage entrepreneurs, and that's embargoes and exclusives. Like, how do I do an embargo? What does that exactly mean? Like, you know, how do I navigate those waters? What happens if something goes wrong? And also exclusives, which was it was a question that somebody posted to the Meetup group, which was, you know, how do I go into an exclusive situation? Kind of what are the potential risks and rewards, etc. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll do a Q&A at the end. And I thought it might be kind of cool if there aren't a ton of questions, because this is kind of public shit. So like, I'll do an office hour if you want for like 5 minutes, you know. I'll like go sit over there or something. And if you want to come over and just have like a one-on-one conversation, because it can be tough to ask questions in front of a group, you know, come over and we'll talk about it. And then if nobody wants to, I'm going to OSO at 9 o'clock. So you can come if you want, but I just had a friend fly into town, so we're going to go to dinner. All right, cool. So that's a steakhouse, vegetarians. Okay, so let's drill down here. Let's talk about, this is a screen grab of TweetDeck, which is one of the most amazing things that has ever happened in my life. Twitter is your best friend, okay? That is sort of the disclaimer, or if we're gonna talk about this stuff, and then if you wrap something really big around it, like that would be Twitter. Like, Twitter is the thing that will give you access to these people, unlike anything else in the world. And it used to be, and not when I was doing it, but like, this is what people tell me. You would like have these huge, it's like any other industry, right? You'd have these huge printed books, and you would go to that book, and you would flip through it, and you'd be like, oh, Nick Bilton, he writes for the New York Times. This is his address, and this is his phone number, and this is his email address, whatever, right? And it's like, all that shit is gone. I subscribe to the Dave McClure presentation model, so I curse. If that offends anybody, I apologize. Can we YouTube this if I curse?
Oh, yeah, sir.
Okay, is that cool? All right, I don't want to, all right, I'll try and
Dave McClure apologize?
Yeah, well, he would never apologize, would he? Oh, I know, right? I need to, seriously, guys, that's my fault. So this is my tweet. This is just like a sampling of my TweetDeck, which could probably wrap around this building. These are my different columns, right? This is Jessie Hempel, who covers social for Fortune magazine. She's a longtime friend. We've worked on stories together. But I mean, like right now, she's writing probably like 2 out of every 5 Fortune cover stories. She's taking a month off from Twitter, but she actually broke her own rule 3 days ago and tweeted at Delta customer service, so shame on her. She's detoxing, I guess, whatever. And so these are mentions, you know, tweet stuff like that, right? So, I mean, you guys can set up journalist lists, things like that. I highly recommend it. Whatever it is that you're doing in your space, if you're building a company as an entrepreneur, whatever it is, like, start to find out who these people are, start to track them. Their information is accessible. The way that they think, how they feel about peanut butter, anything, right? I mean, you have more insight into the people that shape public opinion than ever before, right? I mean, for us, it's a really good thing, you know? I can understand that, like, Mike Isaac at All Things D really likes Four Roses bourbon, and we can go to Alchemist and get a Four Roses together, you know? I mean, that's some powerful shit, man. I mean, you know, to be able to connect with somebody on a very personal level through a medium like this, it is the thing that you should kind of, I think, wrap as context around our discussion. So Let's move on over to building relationships. The way that I like to describe this when I talk to entrepreneurs, and we talk with a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm a Mozilla guy. I like to work with early stage startups. There is this the Series A gap is real. Okay, it's real for agencies. I'll let Pando Daly and Sarah Lacey and Suster and McClure and all those guys talk about whether or not the Series A gap is real or not and what the effect is and blah, blah, blah. For the agency, it's real, man. It is here. Because the way that things used to be was you would cozy up to Sequoia or Kleiner or whatever, and when they got that Series A company, which didn't take much, right? They would dump $15 million into it, and you would charge them 15 to 20K per month as a retainer. Well, that's not the way companies are funded anymore, and that's just the reality. Right? So the agencies need to change, okay? And if you talk to PR people or ad people or content marketing people, my partner's gonna kill me when they see this, but and you start to throw, large retainers at people and things like that, there is a place for that, okay? There are companies that have the brand and the activity or the need, or they're in a marketplace and it's extremely competitive, and there's a ton of work to do. That still exists and it's real, and we have clients like that. We have 20K a month clients. We have 70K a month clients, but if you're looking at the model of, I have an idea, I'm starting a company, it's getting funded and I built it, that model has changed drastically. And agencies, we really need to change with them. So back to building relationships, but I think that, think of this as bank deposits, right? This is your checking account. These people don't know who you are, and they probably should, if you're doing really cool stuff, if you're building something really innovative, if you're putting a team together for the first time and you guys think you're tackling something really cool, they should know who you are. But you have to make deposits in that bank before you can make withdrawals. And whenever you talk to a press person, you are making a withdrawal because their time and their energy and their thoughts, that is what they live by. That is how they make a living, right? So how do you make deposits? How do you build up that checking account before you want to go in and take out some money? You need to be a resource, okay? Have you seen this? Hey, Mike, check this out. I just got this really weird data that doesn't seem to make sense for me, but I noticed you wrote a story about it 3 weeks ago. You might want to check this out. Or, I had a conversation with the CMO or the CIO or the head of development at Frito-Lay last night, and it was some really crazy stuff. I'd love to talk to you about it. Stuff like that, right? Like, when you engage these people, you have to become a resource for them. They immediately have to think, this is a person who can connect me to information that I need to know. Be a connector, all right? This is the whole Malcolm Gladwell thing, right? It's really true with these folks, though. With this audience. When you're talking about hacking the media and getting involved in the media and being a part of their ecosystem, which is what you want to be, and what you can be. You have to say things like, hey, Alex, meet Mark Z, who could be anyone, that could be any Mark Z. This is a person that I met that does X, Y, and Z. They have a startup they're building here, or they're head of this, VC firm there, or whatever it is, right? It's like, I know you write about this. I've been following you. I've been following your stories on Twitter, and I think this would be a great connection for you, And then the number one thing is that, and dude, this is not for me. This is from, the founders of Outcast Agency, which in our world, Outcast was kind of the shit for a long time, right? These guys host the biggest shit, and they get all the media, and they're just, they're geniuses, right? So it's like, it's not, you'll hear them talk about this a lot. Margaret Windwaters, who is the co-founder of Outcast, is now a partner at Andreessen Horowitz. So if you think that PR people can start agencies and then they just kind of like sit there and make dinners happen and stuff like that, that is not the case. Guys like Margaret and Andreessen make them partners, okay? Entrepreneurs in residence, things like that. So it's not about your startup, it's about what's clickable. About 4 years ago, USA Today reporters started to get bonused based on the clickableness of their stories. as their stories moved up and down the stack on usatoday.com, that's what determined their bonus structures, okay? I don't know if you guys know this, but advertising is going away from print and is going toward digital, okay? It's true. It is true. I know, right? Paul Berry he's the former CTO of Huffington Post, okay? And he started a company a little bit ago called Rebel Mouse now, which is a really cool startup, so check that out if you're into cool startups. But he built a system at HuffPo that, not the contributors, you know, like my uncle who like gets an article on HuffPo, right? Like not those guys, but like the actual reporters at HuffPo. He built a system when they launched that tracked their stories every 5 minutes and moved them up and down the stack, so that as writers were blogging and putting out 8 or 9 posts a day, they could see what stories got the best placement and which ones didn't. You know, and they would like say, holy shit, I just covered RDO, that got nothing. Dude, I covered Spotify, that got like 25,000 views in 3 seconds. I'm gonna write more Spotify stories. You know, like that's where this world has gone. And whether it's right or whether it's wrong or whatever, that's our ecosystem and that's what we live in, right? So if you're gonna hack these guys and get into their world and their system, know what they're covering, right? Have a Spotify story, have a Twitter story, have a Facebook story, because those are the things that get clicks. You know, jobsforcolin.com does not get clicks, all right? That does not get clicks, dude. So let's look at like a practical example of being a resource and doing this kind of stuff. This is from, you know, like this month. I mean, what we did, hold on, Prezi going crazy, all right. This is just something I pulled off my, you know, my deck from the last, you know, I don't know, a few days, right, month or so. So Dan Rowinski is, and the PR people will back me up on this, and Dan, I don't care if you see this, but you are a hard-ass man. I mean, this guy hates PR people. He rarely writes back. He's a tough nut to crack, you know, but you gotta respect that, man. I mean, he wants to get his story, and he wants to do it his way, and he doesn't think he needs to go out and, I think, get a lot of other resources for it. So, which is great, but he's a great reporter, man. He's a great researcher. He covers the mobile beat for ReadWrite. And so he tweeted out yesterday, he's in Boston. He's like, hey, anybody going to the HubSpot Inbound Conference, which you probably all know all about, the HubSpot Inbound Conference. I'm shocked you all aren't there. Honestly. You know, and I like, he came up in my feed, right, because I follow him and all my journalists, my list, and I can write on it, man. I'm like, Dan at Tarosi is head of Portland, Oregon's Pi Incubator, great guy. So, done a couple of things here. One, I'm a resource for Dan. Dan lives in Boston, he covers mobile startups. At Tarosi, that's Rick. He's the guy who leads the largest tech incubator in Portland, Oregon, called Pi, the Portland Incubator Experiment, which is backed by a very small advertising firm called White & Kennedy, okay? And they did this thing, Just Do It, or whatever, with this shoe company, I don't really remember. But they've got some cred, right? So Rick is speaking there, and he has access to startups at a very early stage when it's that like 2 to 3 to 5 people that, you know, if they're going to be winners out of there, you know, Dan can kind of get that from Rick, right? So I'm trying to make a connection here. I'm trying to be a resource for Dan. I'm trying to make a connection. I'm trying to put a deposit in that bank, right? That says, hey, I'm not just a guy or a girl who's going to contact you and show my stuff, you know? It's not all about that, right? It's about a community. It's about a community of people connecting to each other and sharing valuable information. And that's what hacking the media is really, you know, really all about. The one on the right is so that's John Schwartz. He's the tech department editor, the head tech editor for USA Today. He's been there a long time. So he likes things like sports, and he and a guy named Mark Ververka are really good friends. And Mark wrote for Barron's for like 20 years and covered public companies. And then Barron's was like, hey Mark, it's been real, but you know, the landscape is changing. So now Mark is, you know, stringing and contributing articles, and John is like, dude, come write for USA Today. You can add a lot of value to our pages. So he contributes like in 2 to 4 columns a month, you know. If you follow Mark on Twitter, you'll know all that. You'll have all that right at your fingertips, right? So I see John, he's like, hey, you know, this doesn't happen all the time. Like, this is a needle in a haystack. I mean, John all of a sudden is like, hey, looking for an expert on, this will be easier. Hey, looking for an expert on tech use in college football. I actually have, I know John. John and Mark and I watch the BCS title game at CES every year in Las Vegas. And so I'm like, oh, dude, absolutely. I actually work with a client who has UVA athletic department as a customer and the University of Oregon's athletic department as a customer, and they do a bunch of like digital marketing stuff for game day promotions and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I don't know if this is a fit, but you might want to check into it and let me know. And John's like, absolutely, email me. Let's get whatever. But if I'm not too tapped into these guys on these networks, then I don't really know what they're doing. I'm going to miss this opportunity. So be a resource for them. Meet them where they want to go. Next is kind of once you've established that relationship, pitching the media. What should my pitch include? I kind of, we get this question a lot when I see people talk about this, but do your research. Have their pulse. Know exactly what they cover. Nobody wants to be sent any email that is not targeted, right? Like when I get emails, and the new Gmail, social and promoted. Filters and things like that marketers are all freaking out about. Like that, I love that shit. I mean, I'm like, dude, yeah, all my social and promotion emails in one. Not relevant, not relevant, not relevant, relevant, not relevant. I want deals on Hertz rental cars. I don't want, you can imagine, right? All kinds of stuff. So be targeted, man. Targeting matters. Be visually compelling. I think this is where, I'll show you an example where you can really start to differentiate, like, your contact with these people, because what everybody does send them is like really long emails, and nobody reads really long emails, including yourself. I mean, I don't care if you're a developer, if you're a marketer, if you're, you just PR, like CEO, it doesn't, you do not read long emails. So be visually compelling. You can do some stuff there. And then, one other point, offer information on background. This is where I think you can really help build that relationship with these people, is that if you know somebody or if something happens to you and it's really cool, or, this happens to us all the time in this town. We're out, we talk to somebody, like, get these guys information on background. Mike Isaac, who covers social, which is a pretty broad beat for all things D, former Wired guy, Wired.com reporter, great guy, really cool. He will go on background or off record with anybody, on anything. All he wants is the dish. He just wants the scoop. He wants to know what's going on and when they're doing it and how they're doing it. And that's one way to get these guys like really, tapped into your network and what you're doing, and to sort of, get this trust, this bond going where, you're going to bring them good stuff, right? You can be a source.
What does off record mean? They don't name you, or they don't say anything?
Yeah, it has to be disclosed, or it has to be defined and discussed within that conversation. Great question. What does off the record mean? It doesn't necessarily mean that Mike's going to go write a story that says, someone affiliated with or close to Facebook said Mark Zuckerberg's page got hacked and this is why, or whatever. It means that, he'll ask you how far he can take it. And then you tell him how far he can take it, right? And it's just a common sense thing. Like, it really is. Do I want my name associated with this? No. Do I want this quoted at all? Because I'm the only one that knows about it. Or maybe there's only 5 people that know about it. No. So these conversations can be purely on background where he never uses it. But then he can call Microsoft and say, hey, I heard this was happening. And then he'll call something, they'll be like, their PR department's gonna be like, no comment, we're not talking about that, I don't know where you got that. And then he'll call a product manager in the group that you were talking about, or something like that, right? These guys' sources go very, very deep. One of my best friends, I was at his wedding, he was at mine, his name's Rob Guth. He covered Microsoft in Japan for a long time, and then covered it for the Wall Street Journal here out of San Francisco for about 6 years. He would go off record and on background all the time because his his list, his contacts ran so deep that he could take that conversation, and once he could confirm it, he could get other sources to talk about it, right? So, as long as you're giving them just like valued information or something that they can use, or you have to be careful with it, but they're going to appreciate it. Right? So you just have to have that sort of disclosure with them up front and be like really clear, like, hey, I'm going to talk to you about this, but you can't use my name at all. And they'll be like, yeah, absolutely, no problem. You know, and you know, just be cool about it, right? Like, it's like, hey, I was talking to the CMO at, you know, Ford, and we talked about this. I mean, I think this is where spending is going to go in social enterprise software. You know, it could be something like that, you know, even. I mean, that's a bit of information that's not going to get anyone in trouble, you know, but it's going to give them an idea of what social enterprise software is really being adopted by brands. Because that's a huge smokescreen, right? It's like, you know, why don't I just buy Buddy Media for $800 million, right? So, let's take a look at this practical example. This is what I call contrarian journalism, okay? This is shit that gets clicks, right? It's like, this is an example of something I did last year, late last year, in October, I think it was. I don't know if the date stamp's on this, but this is from my inbox, you know? And this is to Ingrid London, who works at TechCrunch, and she's a writer. And she works with a guy named Josh Constein, who covers Facebook for a living. And so, Ingrid was writing on ExactTarget, which is the marketing software company. They were making some acquisitions around their customer conference. And I'm like, you know, we had a client that sort of fit into what they were doing because we were announcing a partnership with them. And I realize there's a lot of text, but we have a decent relationship, so it's like I can kind of do this. And it's enterprise software, so it's like, there, what are you gonna show, right? No offense, my Jen. So, you know, notice a couple of things here. Hey, I'm working with these guys. They compete with these dudes right here who have all been acquired for $300 million, okay? All right, cool. That makes sense, you know, those are some big names. Okay, you mentioned in your Pardot ExactTarget post, which was a partnership, like, I read your shit. I know who you are. I'm studying you. I'm researching you, right? This and this and this. Josh, your colleague over there, thinks that further consolidation, you know, things like that. Problem is, all of these companies already have tons of analytics partners, and they've even made analytics acquisitions there. So it's like, I don't really think that's gonna, we don't really think that's where it's gonna go, right? And so it's really about saying, you know, TechCrunch is publishing this. We think that this is a contrarian view to that, and you can contradict directly one of your colleagues, which always makes for a great Twitter stream, right? Between like a TechCrunch reporter and another TechCrunch reporter thinking that, like, you know, yeah, there's like Josh's like, no, I'm right, and Ingrid's like, no, it's gonna come from here. So so the result is something like this. Hi, Colin, nice pitch. Wow, really? Thanks. Please send the release over if you can, maybe we'll, you know, we can arrange a talk with Ben, and that's how the relationship got started, right? So I think that, you know, that's just kind of one example of once you get that relationship, like, here's how you do it. This is a very practical example of something that you could do within your company, right? I know this person wrote about this. Well, we're thinking like this. You know, here's the example of why it's going to happen, right? So the other sort of thing that I talked about was being visual. So this is a company called Siftio, and I've been working with them for almost 3 years now. They are very cool. They're very, very cool guys. The founders are former MIT Media Lab guys, but they are these game cubes. They're 3 1.5-inch game cubes, and they wirelessly read each other and the content that's on them. So as you neighbor the cubes together, they'll read all of the gameplay that's on them. And so you can imagine like Legends of Zelda, maze games, and things like that. You know, how you can build different layers and different worlds and everything like that. So be visual in your pitches. This is a very visual product. We have tons of screen grabs and videos. This is our in my inbox, and it's from Dean Takahashi, who covers gaming for VentureBeat and was at the San Jose Mercury News for a long time. And Dean is like old school, dude. Have a good one. And so Dean is like old school, and he was pissed, man. I mean, he was pissed off, you know. And I just said, hey, Dean, listen, you know, the New York Times told me that, you know, this got broken. It got put on their website, and it's not going to run in print until tomorrow, obviously, but there's nothing we can do, man. So if you want to release your story right now, that's great. If you don't want to write on it, I totally understand. You know, I totally understand. And, you know, honesty is kind of like the best policy when you're dealing with these folks. You know, it's like, this just happened and I'm really sorry, and there's nothing we can do about it. So, you know, I said, we actually got a letter of apology from the tech editor at the time, who was a real hard ass. I mean, the guy is like, he's kind of legendary, but he actually wrote us a letter of apology. He was like, this is not the way the New York Times does things, and we're really sorry. And that's really rare. I mean, that is like really rare. So I shared that with Dean, and I said, you know, we got a letter of apology, and I think you know that means something, and whatever. And Dean said, I need you to forward me that letter. And I was like, no way, I'm not forwarding you anything. Are you kidding me? So you can post it online on VentureBeat and get a bunch of clicks, and then I'm the a-hole, you know? It's like, so I think the one thing to know in these types of situations, if you ever do get this deep, or if you're in a I mean, this can happen when you're building something. I mean, I talk to entrepreneurs all the time where this happens. And, you know, if you get this deep and something like that happens, just, I mean, stay true to yourself and trust your gut and trust yourself. It's like, they're trying, you know, they need to get the story out, and it's all just, it's very professional, it's business. I mean, they're going to push you as far as they can to get what they need. That's what they're going to do. That's their job. You know, as a journalism major, I mean, I wrote for 3 years before I started doing this. Like, that's their job, you know. So say no. You know, when they're asking you to forward apology letters from the New York Times, you're like, no, I'm not doing that.
Snapchat.
You could Snapchat. See, because in 2011 we didn't know. Yeah, sorry, it was 2012. And it's a great call. You could totally Snapchat. So let's talk about exclusives. This was a question on the Meetup page, so I thought I'd just kind of try and tackle it real quick. I think, and a lot of people have different opinions on exclusives. My position on exclusives is they're great. They're cool. Just because you offer someone an exclusive does not mean it's interesting. So just keep that in mind. I mean, it's like, you know, a lot of times we have, you know, early stage companies that we're planning with, and they're like, well, this is just kind of a minor upgrade. What if we offered it as an exclusive to somebody? And it's like, that doesn't really work because it's still not that interesting. You know, like, there's probably things we could do with that other than offer it up as an exclusive, right? So again, I think this goes back to building relationships. Like, you know, establish a relationship via exclusives to become a resource, and to sort of like pay it forward a little bit and get in that person's good graces. I mean, you don't need 10 stories from all the tech blogs hitting it once, you know, in order to drive your message or to drive your traffic, right? So just, it's a long-term proposition. You usually build this up over time where it's like, hey, we have something cool, we'd like to give it to you as an exclusive. But you have a bit of a history with that person. You know, you can pick someone with a little bit more of a smaller but focused audience, you know? So it's like, if you're doing a specific thing within mind mapping that really somebody geeks out on, like, you could bring them that exclusive, you know, and that can work. And then have backups, make a list. Top 5, you know, like, we're gonna start with ZDNet, and then we're gonna go to here, or we're gonna start with Fast Company, and then we're gonna go here, you know, and then like number 4 is gonna be this, right? So, a little bit of a contingency there. And I mean, I don't know, I think that's pretty much it. I just wanted to, maybe we can open it up for a Q&A. I think I'm right about trying to hit my time here, so I think we're good. All right, yes?
So a lot of your stuff today has been pretty deep and involved in following all the reporters and keeping track of what kind of peanut butter stuff they like.
Yeah.
How do you balance that with 5-person and 20-person startups and versus all the other things that we have to do? So
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty agency-like, what you're saying. How do you balance that with all the other stuff we're doing?
Yeah, I think it is agency-like, but I think there's two. I mean, if this is something that's important to you, I think that it's like anything else. You prioritize it and scale it, and it's on a much smaller scale. So it's like if you have a social marketing startup, then there's a handful of people that cover that industry. And honestly, like, if you make a Twitter list with them and you follow their movements and you just have it up throughout the day, and you're checking things, you know, once in a while, or at the end of the day, you kind of go through and read through things, and then you respond to a couple of them. I mean, it's like anything else. You have to put the time in, but they're really accessible, and they do want to hear from smart people who are doing cool things, because, you know, Twitter and Facebook get the headlines, but, you know, they want to track innovators too. So, I mean, I don't mean to skirt the question, but I kind of disagree a little bit. Like, I think that, you know, if you've got a 5-person company and you close a 500,000 seed round or whatever, you know, chances are the way that things work right now, your next round is going to be maybe a couple of $1 million, and that's going to be a pretty damn good round. And all of a sudden, like, you feel like you have competitors, and you feel like you got to get the word out, and you go talk to a PR agency, or one of your venture capitalists or your investors says, you know, go talk to these guys or whatever. And you're like, man, we can't afford that. That's like 3 developers for what these people are talking about. You know? And it's like, okay, I'm going to have to bolt this on like I do everything else as an entrepreneur and as a startup right now. So get to know 10 of them. Get to know 10. That's it. 5 or 10 people. That's it. You know? And start there, right? And say, I'm going to know what these 5 people cover and what they do and try and get to know them a little bit. And then I'm going to try and be a resource for them in some way. And it can just be coffee, you know? I mean, it really can. Now, they're not going to respond the first time because they don't know you and you're not an agency with an established relationship with them. And, you know, that's a big part of it. It's a lot, you know, one thing, maybe I can, I did, anyway, maybe I can do this here. This was one thing I wanted to potentially, I brought, but I was at, I think I mentioned I was at South by Southwest V2V last week. And do you guys know who Marshall Kirkpatrick is? Anybody here? No? Okay. Marshall was the guy who gained like tech blog coverage, right? He would go build these like Yahoo pipes and stuff back in the day, and he would get information from people posting really smart stuff online who knew stuff and wanted to be like influencers before anybody else. And he was like one of the first TechCrunch, full-time TechCrunch writers. And he kind of, I mean, you know, no disrespect to Arrington and everybody that built that, but like Marshall was like one of the first ones that really like put them on the map as a day-to-day beat writer, you know? Writers are researchers. The really good writers in tech are researchers. They're awesome researchers. They can take data and they know where it comes from and they can break it down and they can find the storylines, right? So he did that, and then he went to ReadWrite and he did the same thing there, and then he was managing editor there, and then he launched a company called Littlebird, which identifies influencers online and engagement and who's most influential and stuff like that. So he's gone from a guy who could build shit online to one of the most influential tech bloggers online to an entrepreneur, and he launched his own company. He did all the PR for it himself. So he spoke at V2V last week about just marketing. You know, how do you market stuff, right? And he dedicated a section to PR, and I was there. So when he pulled up the PR slide, I was like, oh shit, this would be great for my talk. I should totally steal all of this. And this was what it was. So I think there's just four buckets here. That's it. Marshall Kirkpatrick, how to launch your startup. I thought it just might be useful for everybody here. You know, it's really tactical stuff. It's like, you know, list out your media, right? Pick some obvious ones. Keep it small, right? Think of a couple people, specific outlets you wouldn't. I mean, this is how he did it. I mean, and he's legit, man. It's less about the hustle and more about the relationships. And that's kind of what spurred me in your question to go back to pull this up right now, which is, it's less about people like getting out there and blasting emails and hustling, you know, and it's more about like developing relationships with these people, right? And then you need to prepare your materials, right? Company story, the value, founders' backgrounds, target market, your competitive advantage, your business model. Get all that stuff in order. Reach out, email them, no phone, do not call them, ever. If you get their phone number, do not call them. They do not like that, period. You know, ask if they would like it under embargo. You know, this is what he's done. It doesn't have to be under embargo, you know, you can pick one guy and go with it, or girl. This is one point I will bring up really quickly, sorry. But I think it's important. Tell reporters thematically if you have news what it is. If you send them the news and they haven't agreed to hold it, they will run it. This happened to me with a company called Aster Data. It was a data warehousing company a few years ago. And they were a big deal. They got acquired by
Teradata.
Yeah, Teradata for like 400 million or whatever it was. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, they did very well. Not a billion Tumblr, woo! Yeah, but I mean, there was some like deep stuff behind this technology, and we were launching for the first time in MySpace, who was a customer, and we did a ton of their data, and I sent an email to a reporter, and I was like, "Hey, we're going to announce this, and this is this is what we're going to say in MySpace. Do you want to cover it?" And he was like, "I didn't agree to an embargo. Why are you telling me this?" And I was like, "No, you didn't." I'm telling you this because I want you to write about it. He's like, oh, I'm going to write about it. I'm going to write about it in 10 minutes, you know? And I was like, oh my God, dude, we've been planning this for like 6 months. And I just screwed us, man. I just totally screwed us. And it's a really good point. And we go so fast, and news happens so fast, and our daily lives happen so fast. If you have something, tell them thematically what it is. We have a large partnership, or we have a big product launch. We're launching the company. We have a huge customer. We would like to tell you about it. Will you agree to hold the news, and will you agree to an embargo, and can we tell you about it? You know, that's how you hook people's interest. Walk that. You got to walk that fine line. Like I said, I mean, you might not get that deep, but like you could. You know, I actually had. Do you guys know who Chris Messina is? He. Founder, he was like he's the godfather of the hashtag. He created the hashtag, right? But he's a former Mozilla guy, and he and I are pretty good friends. And so we worked together, and he was at Google for like the last 2 or 3 years, and he just went to a company called Neon Mob, which is like really obscure. It's like tagging virtual goods online and things like that. It's kind of like very Second Life-y. And they actually had they had to go through this. They went through this exact same process, and it's like 3 guys. So I mean, you know, this stuff it definitely happens. Announcing on a Monday, huge companies make Monday announcements and Friday announcements if it's bad. So don't announce on a Monday. Tuesdays are okay, but it's a big startup news day. So I like Wednesdays and Thursdays. You know, go out with your news on Wednesdays and Thursdays. It's just a less trafficked day, really. And then brief the media. Do a Google Hangout, like get them face to face because it builds a relationship. Tell them your background, why you started the company, right? This kind of feels like no-brainer stuff, but you know, Marshall like made a point to point this out. So that's all. You know, I thought he's a really smart guy, man. He's done this before, so I just thought it'd be really good to show it to you. That's all. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
This is a bit of a two-part question.
Okay.
All right.
Give us some beer for that two-parter. All right.
All right. TechCrunch has never sent anyone $1 million, right? But someone like Justin Bieber or some kind of Twitter celebrity has. But when you try to reach out to the celebrities, you got to deal with the PR, and they want your PR to contact their PR, and their PR don't talk equity. So is there a strategy for going after PRs of celebrities?
Wow. So actual like individual, like we're talking like, you know, Katy Perry, Jamie Foxx, they got 3 million Twitters followers. You want to like go toward a celebrity to talk about? Yeah. All right. There are some gatekeepers there that you just are not going to get around. The way that I do it, we actually had dealt with this with Siftio because our head of marketing was like, Bieber fever, dude. We need these guys recommending. Lori, I love you if you see this, but dude, Bieber fever, no way. She's like, we got to get in front of celebrities. And I'm like, okay, no problem. You know, do that. Try and get in front of celebrities. We were able to get Jimmy Fallon to tweet our stuff while he was on a plane, which is pretty cool. We were trying to get into Game Week because Jimmy Fallon does, you know, an entire week dedicated to video games. That didn't happen yet. But I mean, you know, when I was in New York last, I met with all of his producers and stuff, and they were really cool guys, and we showed them the cubes, and it was awesome. But, you know, it has to happen somewhat organically. I mean, they have to be into what you have, you know. So again, I go back to like, I don't know, like I draw this like circle of influence, and I put like Jamie Foxx in the middle, or whoever the heck it is you want to, you know, endorse your stuff, and then you just draw arrows. Who influences that person? You know, you have to step outside of who they are, and you know, trying to get directly at them, and you have to start to influence the people around them who make their decisions for them. You know, so I mean, I think that would be, I mean, that's the way that we do it. You know, because those publicists have like a very strong hold on those folks, and their time is managed extremely, and they don't really do anything if it's not for money, because their name is their brand. You know, and they're struggling with a lot of this social too. I mean, I think the last 4 Fast Company covers have been dedicated to like Hollywood and social, you know, and like crazy, right? Like how are they dealing with it? Anyway, so yeah, sir, in the back there.
So how do you find their influencers?
I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but like, I mean, I just keep going back to this, and like, there's this thing called the internet, you know, and it's like, there's these applications called like Path, and you know, Snapchat or whatever. I mean, these people they're out there, man. They're everywhere. They have They have Twitter pages. Especially in that scenario, I mean, they're about their own brand. So you have to placate that. You have to play into their own brand, you know? You have to find where these people are online. You have to find what they're tweeting, what they're saying, you know? I mean, a lot of people, you know, I think in Agile marketing, you're data geeks, you know what I mean? A lot of marketers are going toward, you know, the data movement, right? And this is no different. I mean, it's compiling unstructured data and drilling down into it. You just don't have a piece of software that like really does it for you. You know, you have to really like bring that human element into it. But I mean, that's, you know, I'm trying to think of a really good example. Like, okay, so South by Southwest 2014. I have a client. They're in retail fashion and technology, and there's a huge, you know, push right now between like fashion retailers and like Rebecca Minkoff, you know, and folks like that, and then there's Pinterest up here, and then there's like Nordstrom over here, right? And all three of those audiences are trying to figure out how they work together and how they live together and who's smart and who's not, whatever. Well, whenever you have these three extremely different areas of people and you know, experiences, there are a few influencers that sort of bubble up. And these are the new analysts, right? It used to be back in the day, those people worked at Forrester and Gartner Group and places like that, and they would get paid tons of money to like do 9 months worth of research and release one paper, you know, and that's horrible. So there's a woman named Liz Bachelar who, she was an NBC producer, and then she started a fashion, and she covered fashion and things like that, and then she started a fashion communications firm. And she was like, wow, I sit at the intersection of all of these three groups, you know, and fashion, Rebecca Minkoff, you know, Pinterest, and Nordstrom. And I know everybody. None of them are talking to each other. I'm going to start a consultancy that like makes sure they all talk to each other. And she does fashion tech meetups in New York City now. So we went to Rebecca Minkoff's people and pitched a fireside chat at South by next year. And I mean, we know Hugh Forrest. Like, we got Hugh Forrest on speed dial, who's the founder of South by, okay? And that all that means is that we know Hugh, and if we say we have Rebecca Minkoff, he's like, dude, that would be awesome. That's all that means, right? So we get the okay from South by, and we're like, hey, Rebecca, we have the founder of South by who's like really wants you on stage there. And Rebecca Minkoff's CEO is her brother, Yuri. I don't know if you guys knew that, I didn't. And they're doing a lot of stuff with Tumblr, and they're doing a lot of stuff with other social networks. And so we go back and forth with their social media managers and their marketers and everybody, and they end up not doing it. They pass, you know, and we're devastated. I mean, we're devastated. And I go to South by last week, and I end up talking to Liz, and she's like, you're the Postano guys. I totally squashed your South by Southwest fireside chat with Rebecca Minkoff. And I'm like, what? Who are you? I've never talked to you. I don't know who you are, you know? And I think the moral of that story is that there are these influencers who help these people make decisions, and you know, it takes time, but over time you can find them, you know, and you'll look to them. Look to the people who are connecting these disparate industries that are like mashing up against each other but not talking to each other very well, and I'll bet you that those are the ones who are influencing the brands, you know, the celebrities, the Rebecca Minkoffs of the world. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was like, Liz, who are you? I don't even know who you are. I mean, I don't know who lots of people are. A lot of people don't know me, but I talked to everybody there. Nobody mentioned your name once, you know, and she's like, yeah, I'm an influencer. I sit at the center of all this stuff, you know? So I'm like, all right, cool, well, let's talk. And now it's back in the hopper, so we'll see. I don't know. Show up to South by and we'll figure it out.
But other than those kind of incognito types, yeah, you're saying basically see who the, let's say I want to get to Jane Fonda because I think she'd be interested in what I'm doing. I would see who she's retweeting. That would be one way to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, I think that's one way to do it, but celebrities usually have people that are, I think, in charge of, at some point, in charge of some of their content and that social distribution. So, you know, I mean, Jane Fonda, I don't know. I mean, they've got to be out there and participating, I think. You know, if you look at Rebecca, the reason we picked her is because there's Mashable stories on her. She's incorporating social technology into what she does. So, you know, we thought, okay, that's a good one. She's got a trusted network. She's going out there, you know. And so the person that you pick needs to be participating. You know, not just have a Twitter account with like 1.5 million followers, and like 1.3 million of them are BS, and they're gotten by a bot or whatever. So, so that's how that's what I'd say there. Anyone else? Yeah, please.
I was just wondering if you have any thoughts on like local PR. So if you move into a new market, or you're trying to court people in a specific place, or do a service that's very relevant to this place that it's in. In our company, we've been debating internally whether you should just go national and the people who are in that place will see it and be interested, or if you should specifically go and get PR that's relevant to that location.
Yeah, it's a good question. So national versus local, hyper-local, right, on your PR outreach and your media relations campaigns. I mean, I think that now the Path's laid everybody off over there at AOL. There is no more local news, right? I don't know if you guys follow that, but Path is AOL's local poll. Patch, sorry, I said Path, sorry, Patch. Thank you. Yeah, I tend to look at the hyper-local stuff as, like we work with Maker Camp, which is, used to be the O'Reilly guys, and they spun out, but Make Magazine and all those guys a little bit. And we've been working with them over the summer, and they're doing this thing with Google Plus, but they're doing hangouts for Maker Camp for kids online, right? That's a very hyper-local thing. So what we did was, we tried to find, like, when we were building bike exhaust, when kids were building bike exhausts, we would go to like Portland, Oregon, which is like a extremely bike-friendly town, and get to like the one dude in Portland who has like the most influential biking blog. And we'd say, hey, check out this video. This is some great content for your blog, put it up there. And he was like, dude, I love this. Thank you so much. Because he has to write about really depressing crap, like people getting, hit, and like, how cars invade people's spaces and whatever, right? And so he's like, this is awesome. So I think on the local stuff, what I would say is that the local media is in a state of transition right now. I would not count on that. Hit the wires, hit the APs and the Dow Joneses if you want to make a local impact. And if it's pertinent to that area, those local outlets will grab that and take it. But you can also, there are also like, the man on the street, sort of the democratization of publishing online has spun out local influencers, and that's what I would focus on. The guy I mentioned earlier, Rick Tirozzi from the incubator in Portland, he started a blog called Silicon Florist, and it was tracking what everything was happening in the, my colleagues are leaving, so that's how I know it's time to wrap this up, man. Holy cow. But yeah, so that's what I would do. Like, he started out as a local guy just covering local stuff, and he became like one of the guys in Portland that you go to if you have news, or if you want to affect the community there, or something like that. So I would hit the big wires, and then I would go like find out hyper-local, like who's really making an impact in the community online with different blogs and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anything else? Any questions? Yeah, all the way in the back.
What's your thought? I think a lot of stuff you talked about so far, you kind of talked about the large media. What's your thought on maybe just bloggers, like fish bloggers that maybe happen to cover the space that you don't already in? Would that be a worthwhile effort to do as well?
Yeah, I think it's totally worth it, man. I mean, the first ones you saw sort of percolate up were mom bloggers, right? Mom bloggers. We got to get to mom bloggers. They're moms who have blogs and blog about stuff, and they're really influential, and all their friends read them, and this and that. But it actually spurred a huge industry. I mean, there are tons of influencers who started out as just simple mom bloggers who now are like, Disney like buys them, puts on huge events for them and will like fly them to Orlando and put them on cruise ships and stuff. I mean, it's insane. But I think that it's definitely worthwhile. I think that the way that you work with bloggers and the way that you work with media is essentially the same. You want to be respectful of their time. You do pitch them, but a lot of times it's in a much more, I think, relaxed fashion or casual fashion and atmosphere. But it's a huge part of any, just about any company that hires a PR agency and does PR and goes out to traditional outlets. They have a blogger relations campaign. you know, and they have bloggers throughout the world that they target and that they want to keep up to speed on what they're doing, and you know, it's definitely worthwhile. So the rules of engagement are very similar. You know, if you apply the same type of be a resource, you know, work with them, you know, in a timely manner, in a way that makes sense for them, figure out what makes them tick, then, you know. And I will say, like with Siftio, I don't know if you guys know the Pioneer Woman, but it's one of the, its blog like rivals Sony PlayStation's traffic. It's pretty crazy, her blog has a homeschooling, a woman who writes on homeschooling. And so I mean, this is a blog. It's not, I mean, they're a federated media property, but you know, I mean, it's a blog. It started out as a blog, it still is. And we got a review on there from a woman who contributes to the site and who does homeschooling for her kids, and we got over 2,000 comments on it. You know, I mean, I don't know the last. I've never seen 2,000 comments on the NewYorkTimes.com page. You know, I mean, we got the front page of the New York Times with David Pogue, and I think we shipped like 3 extra units that week. You know, so like. Seriously, I mean, so it can be extremely impactful, yeah. So, yes.
Do you mind pulling up the embargo slide again real quick?
I do not. Which, this one or
no,
the one I had?
Yours.
You want mine? Yeah.
Yours, sorry.
All right.
Question though, related to a similar question that was earlier. So I'm at a 10-person startup, and Josh is my only marketing dude.
Yep.
And I'm a founder, and I got no time.
Nope.
Can Josh connect to the media for me, or do they have to talk to the founder, or does Josh do the legwork and hand off to the founder? What's the recommended way for Josh and I to work with them?
Yeah, it's good. So wait, I'm sorry, so who's Josh in that scenario?
Josh is right there.
All right. What's your role in the company? Awesome. Cool. If you did work there, what would your role be?
Whatever.
Okay.
It was hypothetical. He's my marketing dude, right?
Okay, yeah, he's always the marketing dude. Yeah. Okay. So on the approach of in that line, I subscribe to the Andreessen theory, which is entrepreneur CEOs. You know, which is if you're that small, it is your responsibility to be the spokesperson for that company, and you are the one who had the idea and got everybody together and probably built it, or got the people together who built it. And this is just one piece of your education as a human being, which is, hey, I know you, cool, I know what you're all about because I've taken the time to learn a little bit about you. So let me tell you how I'm interesting in, you know, kind of what I'm up to and how can I help you. You know, I'm a part of this community, and I noticed you're a part of that community, and I think they could talk together or work well, or maybe I could supply you this or whatever. You know, it's like, you know, we definitely work with CEOs and co-founders that are CEOs that don't necessarily want to do media relations, and they don't want to do interviews, and they'd rather somebody else do them, or can't the marketing person do it, or whatever. But you know, I think at the point that we talk about a lot, and probably a lot of our, you know, the companies that we work at maybe, or you know, in that, you know, 2 to 50 person, you know, really even. I mean, it's like that co-founder I think needs to be out front, and we try and preach that to them. I mean, it's part of their job, you know, and you can make the connection, but we're gonna hand that off. And I love it when I think a lot of some people, not a lot, I won't say that. Some people you talk to are very guarded of their relationships, right? I think maybe it's my open source background, but it's like, I'm not guarded of my relationships at all. If I can help you get connected to somebody, that's great. You know, because, I mean, if my client starts to develop a relationship with the tech editor at the Wall Street Journal or whatever, I mean, that's great. I want those guys emailing each other, going to a barbecue together, whatever, because then I can go focus on there are no walled gardens here. So, yeah, hope that answers that question. Is that it? Does that work? Is that good? Okay, cool. Yeah?
Yeah, I have a question. I actually work with a lot of nonprofits, and they're more about how can I be a thought leader in a particular in a particular sector, like leadership or workplace development. How would you modify your approach if you wanted the reporters to come to you because they're talking about a particular issue?
Good question. How do you modify this approach? You're a nonprofit, or you're somebody that is a thought leader on something, so that they're coming to you. Over time, that's what I think everybody we work with wants to become. You know, what you want to become is that thought leader and that person that they trust and that they want to come to bounce ideas off of and sort of like gut check things. So I think you're starting at the other end of the spectrum, right? Which is actually a very advantageous place to be. The way that I've seen it done in the past is, I have a friend who does marketing at the Nature Conservancy. But they're pretty big, pretty global. They do a lot of it through their social pages. You know, they really use their Facebook page and Twitter and Pinterest and things like that to connect to media and influencers that are, they're doing that, that are covering that space, or that they want to get in front of, or whatever. So, I think that I haven't done a ton of that myself, but that's how I've seen it done, in the past. And then, let's see, maybe another way to attack that too is conference organizers. This is something that I think applies across the board, but you got to go find the people who create the agenda, and a lot of times it's these reporters. So like if you look at the D conference, I mean, Kara Swisher and Will Mosberg and those guys, they are intimately involved in the content process, the agenda, who's going to be on stage, what they're going to say. If you look at digital marketing in that world, Media Post is an outlet that covers that. All of their reporters put together the agenda for their events. And sometimes they'll tweet out, hey, we're looking to put together panels for the Oma Social event during advertising week, and whatever. But it all goes back to finding them, monitoring them a little bit, You don't have to respond right away, but if you respond within a day or 2 days, whatever it is, you're going to get to those folks. So find the people who make the agendas, because it's not a website submission. Find the people who make the agendas. Yes?
How do you feel about things like Haro as resources to get out there?
Great point. I totally should have put that in there. Thank you. See how dumb I am? Yeah, so help a reporter out. There's these email services that you can sign up to that are free, that just push little advertisements along with them, that will give you a list of reporters who have made queries into them, who are looking for sources for stories, whether they're writing stories and covering things. Haro is one. Some of them have been bought by paid services, so you have to sign up for them, but that's a really good one. I think they're okay. The good news is they're looking for sources. The bad news is it goes out to tons of people, and tons of people see them. So they're really competitive. They're really competitive. So if you should definitely sign up for those and track those. But when they happen, you got to jump on it. If you see something that fits to you, it's mobile payments or whatever, and you think you could be a fit for their story, and you want to be that resource or that person that they interview, you got to get back to them right away, because they're going to get a lot of responses. But it should definitely be in your toolkit. Yeah, thank you very much. It's a really good point. Cool. That it? All right. Thanks, guys. Yay.
So we started off over 10 years ago in this space, focused on publicly traded technology companies. And I think over time we found that our passion was really supporting founders and companies at a very early stage, focused in the area of technology. And there's just so much right with it. And I think even the public markets have recognized that, and companies are staying private longer. And there's always been more innovation within the private world, and now you're starting to, I think, and empirically, we're seeing more value creation in the private markets, and so it's exciting for us. We now manage more money on the venture side than the public side, and we love having events like this. We love seeing passionate, smart people gather together that are creating the next YouTube. And YouTube was our third investment, and it's always nice when my parents understand what I'm doing and they actually use the product. It makes it so much easier to explain what I spend my day doing. But any questions, feel free to follow up with us. Thank you for all coming out. Feel free to stick around after and have a drink and relax. And thank you, Paul, for hooking us up. We met Paul through Practice Fusion, which has been on a tear. We invested, I think, the B round 2.5 years ago, and they're going to have a big VC firm step up here shortly at a big valuation. So, Chris, you have anything you want to say?
Just if you have welcome, nice to meet you all. If you have any additional questions or want to get in contact with us, I'll leave my business cards on the table over here. Please reach out as often as you'd like, and enjoy the presentation. Thank you. Before I turn it over to our speaker, Colin, just a couple quick housekeeping things. Thanks again for coming. I'm Austin. I organize these things with Nick and Paul. And thank our sponsors, again, artists, for providing the space, the beer. Thank MindJet, who, in addition to employing me and several other people here, provides the pizza for everybody. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Colin. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. So the artist guys totally stole my intro, which was where all the restrooms are. But so that kind of sucked. But they're used to taking people's stuff, so it's okay. Just kidding, guys. All right, so
for those ladies that are still looking for the restroom, there is no sign on the door, which I just found out because I've never went over there looking for the restroom. So you have to go through one door, Chris, and then the sign's there. And the men's restroom's right here, and if you can't find either one, there's one right around the corner here with a shower. So nobody get lost in there.
Thanks, Colin. That was great. For anybody that's left, feel free to hang out. There's still more. There's some more beer in there. There's still some more pizza. If anyone's looking to hire, or anyone's looking for a job and wants to come.